In relation to, John, the trials that you have done, there's a few elements to this that I want to hear from you. Where you go along, they're talking about water quality all the time. Am I correct in saying that you can program the machine once, say on the USB, once the soil sampling is done? First of all, is the soil sampling that you just do it once, or do you have to do it every few years? Second of all, my understanding is that you can program it through the USB stick that you put in, that where there's any risk to where there be a flood area or water area, that you can stop that basically to save that area from spreading anything. And thirdly, can you give me a guide of, so far in all the trials, what has been the saving for the farmer? Say a farmer buys every year, they might buy 0730 or 1020 or whatever they buy, or the different fertilizers they buy. What has been the saving in knowing what's required in the fields that you have tried so far, percentage-wise or whatever? Thank you,
Deputy Fitzmaurice. We have, to go back to the start of it there, we were on about protecting sensitive areas, water zones. If the prescription that's made for the field in the required amount is either emailed to the tractor or uploaded via USB, and the operator selects the fields in, the spreader will not allow the operator to spread in the protected areas because it's predeterminedly marked with the UTV or desktop software. Now, we have found that the UTV is largely more accurate because you're on the field, you can see what's actually happening. Using Google Maps or something is very difficult because things change in fields and they could be outdated.
Explain UTV.
We'll say like a quad or something similar.
Right.
So you actually physically drive the internal and external boundaries.
Do you only have to do that, I presume?
Once.
You do a farmer, it's like doing a map for, or a nutrient management plan for your farm. Correct. You do it once and you have it done for forever.
Correct. The nutrient management plan will actually probably change over time, but the internal and external boundaries.
4 years now to keep it accurate, no?
Well, we'd recommend soil testing every 4 years.
You wouldn't have to do the mapping of the fields because you have them already.
Mapping of the field will be done once. So when the spreader then will come to an angle in the field or an area sensitive for conservation, the discs of the machine will actually slow, and if you kept driving into that area, it'll eventually stop and shut off the machine. Right. So it's actually impossible to spread in it. And in terms of the question you asked about saving, all these modern variable rate fertiliser spreaders have an accuracy level of +1 to -1% over a huge area. So the accuracy level is 10% above standard GPS guided application with a blanket spreader. And
say that again?
GPS fertiliser guided spreading, where the GPS guides the operator in a straight line, and it's a blanket spreader. When he turns the corner, he comes to an angle, he could actually overlap a small percentage of what he's doing. Whereas this spreader, when it comes to an overlap, it slows down the disc and eventually stops. And most new spreaders have the capability of doing this. In terms of additional savings, then, the farmer that wants to spread, as you said, 0730 or 01020.
What I'm saying is that farmers, most farmers just bang out the 3 bags to the acre or 2 bags to the acre, and whether it grows or not, then it's whatever happens. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. What I'm saying is, how much of a saving have ye looked at in this?
The totality of the system would be 15%.
15%.
15%.
So a farmer at the moment that's putting out, we'll say 10 tonne, they'll be saving 1.5 tonne.
Correct.
Which on today's figures is about 1,500 to 1,700 euro.
Yeah, we would estimate 10% on the actual physical spreading, and the 5% is made up by targeted nutrients of where they should go in the field. Now, to start off simply, we're not going to adapt the full amount of technology the tillage farmers use into this because they have vast areas of land for doing it. But our idea will be for a farmer to take each individual field or each individual paddock, spread it at a different rate on each field. And over the course of a year or a year and a half, if one paddock is not performing, do an in-depth analysis on that. And eventually bring up your farm to a lot higher standard, a lot higher level. So you'll be increasing production and you'll be doing it sustainably.
So what you're saying to us is that there's a strong possibility you can reduce fertiliser output or buying costs by 15%. What you're saying to us is that on water courses or sensitive areas, you are protecting them, going by what you're saying, there is an additional cost, obviously. Do you tie in with the new system that the Department of Agriculture have, where they brought out a scheme for doing soil sampling last back end?
That's correct.
Now, it was a disaster somewhat because some wasn't done till a month ago. But you tie in with that, do you? And if a farmer says to the person, say it's contractors on busy farms that's putting out fertiliser for many a year. That'd be fair to say, especially on dairy farms because they don't have time. What they have, the GPS is generally on the new fertiliser spreaders now. Wouldn't that be fair to say?
That'd be correct, yeah.
And you have to get whatever antenna more to have the work done on the field to make sure that you have, be it my farm or Jackie's farm or whose ever farm, that you have all the information, and that information lasts. And what you're saying then is that you soil sample every 4 years. Am I correct in everything?
Correct, yeah.
And there is the saving on that. I want to go with the last question onto the anaerobic digesters. There's a problem at the moment right around the country where there is anaerobic digestion done, where they bring the sludge from, be it the cities or the large towns, from water or from the wastewater. That if you're in Borbia, Borbia doesn't let you spread it.
Correct, yes.
Now, I've rang Borbia, I've talked to a person in Borbia, and technically my understanding is, and I've asked for a meeting with the technical people in Borbia, my understanding is that there's no scientific evidence to say that there's anything wrong with the gear once you bring it to a temperature in an anaerobic digester. You bring it up to a temperature, and obviously no more than, if you're told you cannot drink the water that there's E. coli in it, if you boil it, you can drink it, right?
Correct.
So, to put it very simple. And I am being told at the moment that scientifically, and I believe you were with the university, are you?
Graduated last year, correct, yes.
Right. There is no scientific evidence to say that it would be any harm, but it's sort of mentally that we're saying, well, Jesus, I don't want the bullock or the heifer or the cow within that because it came from where there's sludge coming out of, be it for Irish water. Now, I think that people need to know in cities that there'll be a knock-on effect with this because there'll be soon no place to go with the sewage treatment plant, what comes out of them. That's the reality of that.
Right.
At the time the fertiliser prices are high, and I'd be a full believer because you have to watch it, say with pharmaceutical stuff and all of that, for iron and on all the different things that might be in certain things coming out of places. But I think that we have to do an in-depth analysis. My understanding at the moment, Department of Agriculture are happy with it. Right? They don't have a problem. Chagas, happy with it.
Correct.
Borbia, no, if you're in Borbia, you're not going into it. And Department of Environment have people running around in councils now, running around after tankers, wondering what they have on. And you have to have your NMP, you cannot be in Borbia, and there's a heap of stipulations to it that's actually stifling the whole process.
Correct.
What's the solution to getting this sorted? Because we are going to have a major problem for the people that's living in cities and in large towns. But on top of that, if there's an angle that we could grow or reduce fertiliser coming imported, as we know the price of it this year, and going by year first system, you're reducing it by 15%. But on the second system, it would reduce importation massively. In other countries, my understanding is that this is allowable, other EU countries. So where do you see the blockages on that at the moment?
Just in terms of legislation, we feel that we're very far behind the rest of the EU in terms of the use of this biofertilizer. It's quite readily available to plants and soil in comparison to other imported chemical varieties. The biggest change that we'd like to see is that the reclassifying of digestate from a waste to an organic fertilizer co-product, which it is. It has quite high nutritive contents, which I'm sure you're aware of, Deputy. We really kind of would need to get this changed, get this classification changed, and the endorsement then from the Department of Agriculture, Board BIA and the EPA that it will greatly increase the amount of land that will be made available and that can be made available to avail of this valuable source of nutrients for farmers, tillage farmers all around the country. For example, say currently there's certain county councils that it can be used, certain that it can't be used.
But if you're on Board BIA, you can't.
You can't use it at all. Yeah,
a lot of farmers are.
It's quite like the digestion process is quite a controlled process. It's rigorous.
To be clear, you're talking about bringing it from the sludge plant into the proper anaerobic digester, bringing in the heat treatment that goes on in it, up to a certain degree.
And it's then actually pasteurised as well, Deputy.
Pasteurised.
It goes through the same pasteurisation process.
We're not talking about bringing it in the lorry from the place and out in the
Absolutely
field.
not, no.
Yeah,
It goes through the same.
With you, what you're saying.
It goes through the same pasteurisation process, would you believe, actually, as dairy products and milk. And the question would be if it's good enough for milk, then for people to ingest, then it's damn good.
What's the solution?
Reclassify this from a waste to an organic product.
Sorry, Deputy Fitzmaurice, can I just say something there? What I think the solution is as well is the transparency that we've put out on this. If the machine is incapable of spreading in sensitive areas, and if it gets an exact prescription of the rate per acre that's uploadable to the cloud or to the relevant authorities want to see it, well then therefore there should be no issue at all, because any relevant authority can see where, when and how it was spread.
Yeah.
And if that's the issue that's holding back this, well then we have a solution here today for
So
it.
to summarise, you have a double win. You have sensitive areas for water quality and on the savings of fertiliser of 15%.
Correct.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy.